Good evening. My name is Abdur Bagza, and this is the Law Long Dissertation Module video presentation for 2017. And I will be talking about my research today. I will be answering a few questions in regards to the research. These questions include why I chose the area of law that I chose, what are the problems that I've encountered whilst conducting my research, what I have researched thus far, and how I plan on conducting my research in the future, and what I need to improve my dissertation in the future. Okay, so firstly, the first question that I would like to bring my attention to is what area of law I have chosen and why. In a very broad spectrum, I am researching refugee law, and to be very precise, I'm going to be researching about the law of non-refoulement, which is a legal right given to all refugees protected by the Geneva Convention in 1951, Article 33. This right enables protection to all refugees uh, from being deported or sent back to any country, including their own, to prevent them from facing persecution. The area of law that I've chosen, the reason I'm researching this particular topic is because it interests me greatly. In the current crisis the world is facing in regards to refugees, especially with so many Syrian refugees fleeing the country and fleeing to Europe, so many countries have had an influx of refugees, and this has led not decisively, but it is a causal factor to an increase in terrorist activities over the last couple of years. We've seen attacks in Turkey, attacks in Germany, attacks in Belgium, attacks in the United States, all supposedly committed by individuals who were refugees of some sort or were relatives or children of people who were initially refugees in a country that was not of their own. Therefore, this area interests me, and I want to see whether this current protection offered to refugees is under any sort of threat uh, with the increase of these terrorist activities that have resulted and come about in the last couple of years. And that is the one of the main reasons that I wanted to pursue this area of research. Now, the second question at hand is, at this point in the process, what argument am I seeking to advance and why? Okay, with the research that I have conducted, I have come to the conclusion that the law of non-refoulement is very, very embedded in international and human rights refugee law. There are not a lot of arguments in regards to this where people feel that maybe the law needs change or maybe that the law is getting old, especially in regards to the recent activities that have been happening all around the world. With that being said, I do agree with the argument that has been placed thus far with refugee law, and that is that the law should remain as it is, and that is the argument that I am trying to progress for, because my question is whether the law should be reviewed or not in light of the events that have been taking place in the world in the last couple of years, and I believe that the law should not be reviewed in light of what has been happening, because the law offers protection to millions of people who seek refuge in the world, in Europe, in the United States, in Asia. There are so many countries which offer refuge to a lot of individuals, and yes, unfortunately, a minority of these individuals do result in activities or they do partake in crime, and there's of course laws for that. Article 33(2) provides exceptions to the rule for refugees and their deportation. And I will be, of course, analyzing that further to produce a more conclusive argument on whether the notion for non-refoulement and whether any reform for that has been considered is something that I will be looking forward to assessing in my dissertation as well. But as of now, I am looking at the argument in the favor of keeping the law as it is and not really meaning to have much change to it. I feel that the law is sufficient. It is good in the protection that it offers refugees and asylum seekers, and therefore I feel it does not need change in order to be as effective as it is now. Moving on, in terms of the literature you have reviewed so far, what information has been influential in my thesis and why? Okay, so most of my arguments have been based on case law that I have read and cases that I have covered. these cases are human rights cases, as well as non-refoulement cases, and they have given me the basis for my argument in that they uphold the law. The principles in the Geneva Convention, Article 33.1, have been upheld in most of these cases, and it is a very rare occurrence that any individual will be facing a risk of deportation or facing the risk of being sent back or being refouled by any state that he has applied to seek asylum in, and that has been the main basis of my of the literature that I've read thus far. I have also read some academic articles. I've read journal articles which have supported this argument that the law is good as it is and that it does not need to be changed in any way, and how the law protects the individuals who seek protection under the Geneva Convention and, of course, other international instruments which provide for non-refoulement. Moving further with the argument, we have what has been the most difficult aspect of the dissertation thus far, and how have we sought to overcome these difficulties? Well, I think for me, as is with any good argument, you need to have two sides to an argument to make it compelling and to have a good analysis of any research that is conducted. For me, I feel that I have struggled to thus far find any sort of article or any sort of basis which shows that the law of refoulement is up for reform. Like, I feel that that is an area which I have struggled to find information for. As of now, I have found very, very little in regards to the correlation between terrorist activities and a need for change in this law of refoulement. There is one article which links terrorism and non-refoulement, and that is so far the only article that I've found. It is in the Human Rights Law Journal, and that is the only article thus far which has somewhat stated that maybe the law might need reform in regards to terrorist activities, or at least it calls for better background checks when inspecting applications for asylum. So that is one area of the law that I have. That is the area of the law that I'm researching that has caused me a great deal of difficulty at this point, is finding more evidence to go against my argument than there is to support my argument. There is plenty of evidence to support the side of the argument that I want to press forward, but any analysis is futile without a proper argument. Therefore, I feel that I need to conduct more research into this area of the law, which states or which provides me with more evidence. Maybe I need to look at more statistical analysis, or maybe of studies that have been conducted in the last 2 or 3 years about non-refoulement and terrorist-related activities, or any sort of crime, not necessarily terrorism. That is just one of the factors that is there. Generally, the law, of course, states that if you have a criminal background, or if you have committed heinous crimes in your country, and then you seek refuge in another country, those are grounds for refusal or for refoulement, and that is that evidence is something that I have lacked in finding in my research thus far, and that is something that I am looking at every day to try and improve my research and the quality of the work that I'm doing. And lastly, what is my plan for the dissertation moving forward? Well, I feel as if I feel at this point in the dissertation I don't have enough to support the other side of my argument, like I just talked about in the other question in relation to the problems that I faced. That is one problem. That is one thing that I have to address moving forward, is the lack of evidence that I have against my point. Also, maybe I need to read further into legal journals. I need to read more books in order to understand how the law operates, in order to understand what the legal basis for refoulement has been, the history for the law, why this law was created. It's just more in-depth analysis will be conducted and needs to be conducted in order to make my argument more wholesome than it is at its current stage. With that being said, I am pleased with the research that I've done thus far, and I feel as if I'm heading in a very positive direction. Hopefully, my research will be thorough and conducted in a very good manner, and hopefully the work can be done in an efficient manner, and I will not face many problems moving forward. I do feel that I will need to look at more sources of law, or more sources in general, to gain my information, and that is something I will persistently pursue in this coming semester. And that is all for my presentation in regards to my thesis and what I've conducted thus far. Hopefully this presentation and this video was beneficial. Thank you very much for your time. That is all. Thank you.